Good morning and welcome to this celebration of the courage and integrity of two remarkable Queensland women, Dr. Gillian Spencer and Sal Grover. Their spirit, their resilience are exercised on behalf of us all. And to you, Sal and Gillian, we say thank you, thank you. We meet on stolen Aboriginal land and we pay our respects to the elders who cared for the land and the waterways. We also acknowledge the countless generations of women, including lesbians, who have fought so hard for women's rights as human beings, often at the cost of their lives. I also want to acknowledge today that 2 weeks ago we lost one of our own. Judy Patterson died unexpectedly. Judy had been a great supporter of the annual Women's Liberation Conference held in Brisbane, and for several years she chaired the panel that selected the winners of the Eva Bacon and Magdalene Burns Awards. Rest in power, Judy. I'd like to thank those women who agreed to provide practical support for me on this day, helping with setup, selling merch, setting out the lunch, videoing our speakers, etc. Thank you to Ali, Kathy, Christina, Christine, Donna, Kaylee, Narissa, Sue. Thanks. I'd also like to thank Nina, who will support us in our group song to close the meeting. IWD Meanjin Brisbane is primarily a Facebook page I established in 2017, and I use it to organise real-life events. An annual Women's Liberation Conference since 2020, an annual IWD rally since 2018, the organising of which I'm handing over to other women for next year onwards. Street protests at half a dozen Labor MP offices where we protest sex self-ID, and speaker events like this one. I've been hosting these speaker events for 5 years. Some of them are recorded on the IWD Brisbane YouTube channel. You can find that easily. We've been doing street action since 2021, in addition to the IWD rally, which has been going a few years longer. The page, like me, is unashamedly left-wing and radical feminist. While sex, self-ID and the gender industry are the primary focus at this time, speakers also present to oppose the sex trade in women's bodies, including the prostitution industry, to oppose surrogacy, to oppose porn, to oppose all forms of men's violence against women. My page also defends women's abortion rights, but we're not under attack in any state significantly on that issue. I chose the focus of IWD because International Women's Day, 8th of March, was born in working class women's struggle for improved working conditions and pay, as well as the right to vote in the early 20th century. It was initiated in 1910 at the Second International Socialist Women's Conference. I continue to celebrate those radical origins with the annual Women's Liberation Conference. At previous events, I've pointed out that those far-left groups that I used to be a part of, and I know there's one other person in the room who's also from the far left, have actually abandoned left-wing and Marxist political analysis in denying the existence of women as a sex class. Today I'd like to highlight the lack of genuine concern for women's safety by politicians like our Premier, Stephen Miles, and our Minister for Women, Shannon Fentiman. Both of them eagerly joined the public marches ostensibly to oppose men's violence against women just a few weeks ago. At the same time, they actively fuel the drivers of men's violence against women. Have a look at the poster, which I think is in front of me. You probably can't see it very well, but it's been around for at least 7 or 8 years that I'm aware of. It's an anti-DV poster. It points out the foundations of men's violence against women, as well as the politicians. Perhaps it's time for the women's organisations and the trade unions, including the retired unionists and the lefty solidarity organisations, to look at this poster with a bit more interest in men's violence against women than they've previously been able to muster. At the apex of the triangle is the word murder. The murder of women by men who claim to love the women. Beneath the apex are 4 foundations or drivers of men's violence against women. Compare, if you will, those drivers with the way gender ideology treats women and girls. Sexist jokes and language, objectification of women, that's the biggest one. The trans ideologues call us menstruators, uterus havers, chest feeders, people with a third hole. Well, Stephen Miles and Shannon Fentiman, you can't objectify women any more than that. Above that line, we have traditional roles, rigid stereotypes for women and men. Gender ideology seeks to strap us all back into those sex roles we thought we'd burst through in the 70s and 80s. If a teenage girl likes girls romantically, it's suggested to her that she may really be a boy. If a boy toddler likes dancing in a pink tutu, it's suggested he may have been born in the wrong body. Let's go up a line. Threats, verbal abuse, harassment. We know why women's meetings are so often in secret venues these days or require large numbers of police to protect us. Did you see the huge number of police yesterday in Melbourne that had to protect the Women Will Speak rally? Women who dare to exercise our right to free speech and assembly are abused, harassed and threatened. Let's go to the line immediately below murder, rape and sexual assault, physical, emotional and financial abuse. We all know what's happened when male prisoners who call themselves women are housed in the women's estate in prison. Rape and physical abuse are the result. We predicted it. Wasn't hard. It happens. We also know many instances of young lesbians being coerced, threatened and bullied into having sex with men who insist they are women. Consider the position too of trans widows, the women whose husbands announce they're women and that the couple is now in a lesbian relationship. These situations are frequently accompanied by physical, emotional and financial abuse. Gender ideology is a driver for men's violence against women, and it's a driver for the normalisation of this violence by the judiciary, the police, the funded women's services and other groups. It's time everyone who claims to oppose men's violence against women recognise that they can't have it both ways. If they advocate for gender ideology, then they support men's violence against women. Moving on to the main act. Gillian Spencer is a senior child and adolescent psychiatrist who was stood down from the Queensland Children's Hospital in mid-April last year for raising concerns about gender treatments for children. She's pursuing a case through the Queensland Human Rights Commission claiming political discrimination. Thank you, Gillian, for coming to this meeting. We're in your debt. Please give us your updated report.